friends. We're here today with the author Shefali Tripathi Meheta and Sheila Kumar, both very interesting and creative people, for a chat on Shefali's book, The People on Our Roof. I'm K. Priyamvada, managing editor at Niyogi Books, and it is our privilege that we have published Shefali's latest book as well as her previous one. Let me tell you a little bit briefly about the book and then introduce our panelists before I hand over to them for what I'm sure is going to be a fascinating conversation. So, without further ado, People on Our Roof. In a once grand, now down at heels bungalow in a South Delhi colony lives Naina with her mother, sister, and the stigma that madness runs in the family. When a woman's face peeps in from the mists of her childhood memories, Naina sets out in search of the truth behind her father's disappearance. Then comes a call that begins to unspool the past. People on Our Roof is a portrait of one woman's undying commitment to her kin, her struggle with relationships, and a heart wrenching story of indestructible love between two people. A coming of age story, it also explores the world of people whose minds are wired differently. This is a very sensitive and fascinating book, particularly in a time when mental health issues are beginning to gain greater attention. So, looking forward to the fascinating discussion, let me briefly introduce both our speakers for the day. Shefali Tripathi Meheta is a novelist, poet, and social worker. People on Our Roof is her fifth book and the second work of fiction after Stuck Like Lint. She has published short stories and poems in anthologies and online. She writes on disability awareness, social issues, travel, and parenting. For close to 10 years, Shefali wrote the cover story for the Sunday supplement of the Deccan Herald. She lives in Bangalore and works with the Azim Premji Foundation. Shefali also volunteers with the disability organization Arushi and curates Gond art to support tribal artists. She is a truly multifarious professional personality. Such a pleasure to have you with us here, Shefali, and we look forward to hearing more about your book and writing and all your other creative activities. And now, I will meet Sheila. Sheila Kumar is an independent writer and editor, also based in the beautiful city of Bangalore. She worked for the Times of India group in Bangalore and Delhi, and then at Femina Delhi for over a dozen years before turning freelancer. Her books include a collection of short stories, Kith and Kid, Chronicles of a Clan, No Strings Attached, and A Gluten-Free Life as co-author. So, from short stories to cuisine, quite a range of writing there, Sheila. Lovely to have you with us, and we look forward to your conversation with Shefali. So, over to both of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Priya.
Good evening, Shefali. I must begin by saying that I found your book a very thought-provoking read. And as I was reading through it, a whole lot of questions started gathering in my head. So please let me ask you some of these questions now.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, so what led to this particular topic?
Sheila, you are yourself a fiction writer, so you know how some stories just come very compulsively and will not go until we write them down. So it's something like that happened with this story. But this was my first fiction writing. So I wasn't sure at that time what I was getting into, if I was writing a short story or a novel. But and once I started telling a few of my friends that I'm writing a story, people started sending me all kinds of write a novel in 10 days kind of things, and the snowflake process and it was very overwhelming because I couldn't do it that way. I'm not I realized that I was not a methodical writer who could, create a framework and a beginning and an end. So it was just like Nana would occasionally come and lead me by the hand, and that is how the story came about. And it it took a long while, Sheila, because I was not in a hurry to either finish or to publish, or it was just something, the journey that was really nice, gratifying, very happy to keep coming back and adding stuff and rewriting. Yeah, that's
How
how
long
it
did
is.
the whole process take?
I think I wrote it over 10 years almost.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yes, yes. This was
Quite
my
a labor
first.
of love.
Yes, so I published several others during this time, but I waited with the story is still Nana in my head. I just can't call the book People on Our Roof. I just keep referring to it as Nana. So the
Yeah.
story of Nana just stayed with me so long that I think it became another member of our family.
Yes, they do have the
Almost,
tendency
yes,
to do that.
yes, yes.
So, before we zero in on the book itself,
Yeah.
would you tell listeners about the process of writing then, you know, the harder part for every writer, pitching to a publisher,
Yes,
finding a
yes,
publisher. So, how
yes,
was that journey for you?
yes. So, I went through an agent. Preeti Gill is my agent, and after Preeti read it, it was a very quick process because she sent it to Neogi Books, and I think within 2 days, Nirmala wrote a very nice mail to me accepting, and they sent me a contract within a week, and everything happened very quickly after that. But the main thing then was uh, they're very methodical. Every the whole process. So the editor, when she sent me her evaluation, um, she had written two things that I mean, it just made me feel like, okay, she's got it. And it's such a, blessing to have the editor on your side. First thing she
Yes,
said, because it was
yes.
not the, yeah, you know that, right? So, because this is not a linear narrative, so the fear in me was also that we may try to change stuff, and so she said this is not for everyone. Maybe not everyone would appreciate reading like this or something, but we also decided it was okay with all of us, and we also decided not to oversimplify, and which was really nice. It was, and then there's this nice team. There's Misha Oberoi who does the cover. She's done the third cover for me. Very,
It's such a
she's also,
striking cover.
yeah, she's also a
Really a
person with
striking
very
cover.
gentle sensibilities. All of the entire team
Okay.
was such that
Okay.
it just came together so well for this book. Yeah,
Fantastic. Okay. So, and now let's introduce Naina to listeners, because I think you
yeah,
were very right when you said, okay, the book's title is People on Our Roof, but this is
yeah,
out and out Naina's story. And
right.
she is a most interesting woman, someone most women will identify with, because, she juggles so many balls up in the air. She manages a job, runs a house, looks after a mentally challenged mother, an autistic younger sister. Um, she gets into these less than favorable relationships, and all with no support system to speak of. So, what I'm very curious, what is Naina's goal in life?
So, I mean, at that level, at one level, it is a young woman who is trying to, make a good, honest life for herself and for her family. And so, it is a story of a woman who overcomes the challenges of her circumstances. And so if you know, she doesn't give up. The main thing is that her father leaves them and goes, but here Nana is, you know, she sometimes finds herself stuck in the circumstances. She is conflicted. She thinks that, you know, if she could also get rid of it like her father does this, that. But through the whole process, when you get to the end of the book, you realize that she's overcome so much, her own fears, her, you know, she's become more
Yeah.
courageous. In, I mean, the story begins with a 23-year-old Nana who's growing up in Delhi in the 1990s, and she has to face all the things young women at young or old, or I mean women used to face at that time. It was tough. Delhi at of that time, prior to the Nirbhaya incident, I should say, tragedy. So all the eve teasing, the commutes in the bus, you know, the job interviews, trying to find a job. She's in a relationship, so everything else is, I mean, how it is for everyone else, all other girls. But then there is a different circumstance at home, and she has to
Yes.
deal with that too. So, but that's, I mean, that's only different in the way that I think society empathizes with some groups more than it does with the others. So, people are more likely to help someone who's in a financial crisis, or you know, anything else, but not so much with,
Necessary. Yeah.
yeah, a family that is
Yeah.
that has people with mental health issues. They are completely ostracized from society. People mock at them, I mean, ridicule them, do everything cruel to them. Yeah, so in
Yes.
that way, you know, so it is not
Which
goals, but
makes
in the
their,
end,
you know, their struggle much harder when you really think about
yes,
it,
yes.
because they have
So
this
yeah, so
barrier
in
to
the end,
overcome.
yes. Yes. So even though we haven't set talked of any goals that she is achieving in the end, there are things that you can clearly see how she's grown over the years, and you know what she's achieved for herself and for her family. Yeah.
So
Would
I
you?
don't know. Yeah. Yes.
Should I
Tell me.
read some bit? I mean, we.
Yeah.
I
I was
mean.
just going to tell you.
Uh-huh.
Can you
Yeah.
read something which reveals to the listener and the potential reader um,
Yeah.
just what her conflicted feelings regarding her mother,
Right.
whom she calls Amma, is?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. Let me do one thing. I'll read about her. Mm, I'll read about how she deals with, you know, eve teasing on a daily basis in the
Yeah.
beginning and in the
Yes.
end, what happens. And then we come
Okay.
back to I just have to look for that page. Huh? So this is the
Okay.
bit I'm reading about what she faces when she goes out jogging in the morning at 6. She had to wait till 6 to feel safe outdoors, with streams of sweat running down the sides of her face and a soaked tea stuck to her back like butter paper. As she sprinted past the bus stop, she heard him holler. Just another among the morning sounds, the emerging cacophony of the day, unobtrusive if you did not focus, but if you did, each very distinct. The grinding halt of the milk lorries, the screeching roll of store shutters, the gentle thump of newspaper bundles being dropped off at street corners, the clip clip of stray dog feet on empty pavements, an occasional tinkle of bicycle bells. His cry rang out clear, two words that could mean much or nothing at all. She did not think he was directing it to her. He was, like so many on Delhi's streets, to whom this came as naturally as pissing on the walls, calling out to a passing woman, brushing past her in a hurry, squeezing her breast, whispering a lewd something into a little girl's ears, just venting. It was not her problem, not anybody's. She was venting too, running like this. So this is what. how she was in the beginning, and you know how she's not. I have not even mentioned what he calls out because that's not important. She doesn't
Yeah.
pay attention. She knows
Yes.
there are people who would be doing calling out and saying things, but in Delhi, everyone, women learned just to ignore. That was the best policy. And later, I come back to this, what he calls out, and how she reacts. I just read that bit out too. Tegi kya? Naina heard the usual word comment as she started jogging. She had never looked at him. She was not even sure it was the same person all these years, calling out as she sprinted across the bridge. Naina had never stopped to question why she allowed him or others like him to do this to her. Why that man under the bridge opened his fly every time she passed him by, or why the grocer touched her hand while handing her the change every time. She had become an expert at turning away, at pretending to not see. It was the norm. Yeah. So now she stops him and bashes him up, and so that is in
Yes.
the end.
Yes.
That is how she has grown. Yeah.
So basically, this is a very strong girl. When she needs to reach down into herself and pull out the resources, you find that her strength of character, her strength to face life, and all the curveballs that life throws her way is incredible. So, which brings me to my next point that I read the book not okay, it had its very sad moments, but I read it more as a lone woman's victory against many odds.
Right.
So Naina is not really a tragic figure, not to this reader at least. She's single-minded
Right.
in her quest to make a
Yeah.
decent life family
Right.
and take care of her mother and her sister. Would you agree with this point of view?
Absolutely. Yes. In many ways, I think Nana is like me. Not giving up. She has some moments. She breaks down. She feels conflicted. She feels that she has no one to turn to. Um, but every time she knows that she has to try harder. She has to be braver. She has to be stronger. There is no way out of it. And I hope that comes across, loud and clear. I mean, she's on top of everything all the time, right, Sheila? In the end, she is,
Yes, she
helping. Yeah,
is.
yeah,
Absolutely. I think that's
yeah.
admirable. Also, Shefali talks about mental illness.
So,
Sorry.
sorry, I couldn't hear. We lost you for a bit, Sheila.
Hello, you can hear
Yeah.
me?
Yes. Yes. Now you can hear
So,
you now,
to
Sheila.
move to my next question, or rather my next point, which is the second pillar of your book, Shefali. The second pillar of People on Our Roof is mental illness. But you deeply to that condition. Um, you seem to be definitely, turning the focus more on a single woman because it's mother and sister. It's not so much the mental illness. Am I right?
Yes, of course. Yes. It's so the story
In
is about
read that way?
the caregiver. Yes. Can you hear me, Sheila? Uh,
Yeah,
can you hear
yes.
me? Yeah, okay. So the story is definitely about this caregiver whose mother
I can
is
hear you. Yeah.
her mother had schizophrenia and her younger sister is autistic. And so a caregiver has a very difficult job at hand. But here is this girl who, um, you know, these people suffer twice over, because first is the situation at hand, and then you have to interface with the world, who is everybody outside of this situation is, very ignorant, and they label easily. They label you easily, they mock and they alienate you. And so that is how Nana was, important. To tell the story of Nana was important for me, because we say about people with mental health issues that they are free and happy. They're living in their heads most of the time. They are not bothered about, they cannot worry about where the next meal comes from, or what the people around them are saying, or how their caregivers are suffering. But so it's double the pressure on the caregiver. Yeah. Are you there, Sheila?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think
True.
we've lost Sheila for a bit. Oh, you're
So,
there. Shall I read a bit to about? So I tried
there
to.
was a little part called Anand coming up.
Okay, before you go to Anand, Sheila, can I read a bit about this? The thing that I was just talking about, I tried to so because
Yes.
Nana doesn't talk about her family too much to her colleagues in the beginning, colleagues or friends or others. So there is this one woman that she keeps seeing who seems to suffer from some mental health issue, and what people in the office
Yes,
are
of course.
talking about. Yeah, so these are her colleagues talking in office. There was a terrible jam on the way. A woman got hit by a bus. People were saying she won't make it. I used to see her around often. Arundhati was telling them. Oh, you knew her? Oh, they asked. No, I didn't know her, but she was a bit odd, always standing somewhere in that area, wearing outlandish clothes and makeup. She had that strange look in her eyes, away with the fairies, I would say. There was a hint of a smile in her last comment. Where was this? Syed asked. Near the Bhairav Mandir. Nana froze. She instantly knew it was the big woman. There was no point asking. A phone began to ring at the reception. Its ringing reverberated jarringly in the relatively empty and now quiet office. Where's Sunita today? Uday asked and went out to answer the phone. Must be caught in the traffic jam too. She lives in Sarita Vihar, Arundhati said to Syed. The gathering had dispersed. The two of them went to their seats and switched on their computers. How was it possible? How could a big woman like her not be seen by a driver? Nana realized that her hands were shaking. Who could she talk to about this? There was a meeting at 10. She had to gather herself before that. She quickly slipped on her shoes at the reception and came out of the office. Uday did not notice. His back was turned to her. Was it the best way out for her? Death? How the passers-by had looked past her while she stood there, like she did not exist. On days that she was dressed more outlandishly than usual, or when she was talking to herself openly, loudly, weaving the air with her fingers, complete strangers smiled at each other, glancing at her. Everybody else, liars, cheaters, fraudsters, wife beaters, husband cheaters, pedophiles, addicts, bribe givers, bribe takers, doctors, lawyers, teachers, mechanics, mothers, grandfathers, beggars, rash drivers, people in fancy cars, rickshaw drivers, women wearing platform heels, women in Bata Hawaii chappals, but together in their derision for her, all of them normal. So that's what she realizes, that if you have a mental illness, I mean, this is the worst thing that can happen to you in society. I mean, you know, yeah.
And also
Sheila,
comes through as very vulnerable to office politics, isn't it?
um, Sheila, your audio is breaking. Could you repeat that?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
So I like I was coming in, and he was disturbing and interesting because he was in a arranged match. Would ask you is till then is being portrayed as a very independent spirited woman. Why would she consider Anand the prospective husband at all?
I'm glad you asked this question.
Because known demons to fight and slack by the reader.
We can't hear you too well, but I think you're asking why Anand was brought in. So Anand is a very critical character in the story. It it shows how deep our biases run. You know, Nena is 27 and not married, and there is no man except the house help living in the with them. So the 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 whole world becomes matchmaker, and tries to set you up. Um, but here they found something. Her aunt found her a match who had
Yes.
also been gone through this mental health issue. Yes, so we read this for one session. We were discussing Shanta Gokhale's Avinash, in which Avinash, who also had a episodic mental health issue, was married off to a girl whose one leg was shorter than the other. So, there's some physical problems. So you pair it with someone who has a mental issues. So those kind of biases still run very deep in our society. So it was really important for me to bring this out, even though she's constantly winning over the challenges in her daily life. This continues. It has continued over the years, and we started at when she was 23, and she is now 27, and still she has to. But then Nana, the conflict in Nana, I would like to read something to tell you. It's not as if she just agrees to marry Anand, and this we discussed while editing also. It was not, she goes through the conflict. She doesn't want to get married. But then I'll just read that part out. Yeah. Nana felt numb. There was no place for Anand in her
Yes.
life right now. Yet here he was, Anand, the 9 to 5 college lecturer. How had he happened to her life? While she was doing extremely well professionally, her personal life was a constant trial. Was Anand, the satchel carrying, her escape, the one man who would quietly walk into her life and close the doors on all others? Maybe he would even try and stick the label of nice girl on her. So initially she's contemplating, thinking what to do. Then um, once Anand visits her, she this is the part after that. After he left, she began to see things from his perspective. What was Anand's fault in all this? He seemed like a harmless person, willing to marry her even after learning about her family history, something even the one who claimed to love her had backed out from. Anand had told Preeti auntie that he would move in with them and nothing needed to change for her. That Tara would be his little girl and Raju could continue to take care of the house. That Nana could also continue her job. This was all so thoughtful of him. See, these are little things, but how much they impact, your life. She was being unfair. Then again, harmless really? Did she have to choose harmless over love? Would she find love again that would encompass her being, that was tethered to the responsibilities of a home and family and the deep social stigma? She decided that she would say yes when Preeti auntie asked her on Sunday. And yeah, so she tries her best, and the main thing I think was that the father had abandoned them, and she didn't want to do something similar to anyone else. Are you there, Sheila? Okay.
So actually, her sense of dharma was very strong where Anand was concerned, right? I mean, she would have settled for him if she had to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. But when he becomes a threat to her
But that's
sister
not how the
is when
cookie crumbled anyway, right?
okay. Sheila, we can't hear you at all.
So Shefali, what about they do meet? Did you do that deliberately? You didn't tie up that end just because, well, that's how life is. Life doesn't always offer closures.
Sorry, who are you referring to, Sheila? We couldn't hear your question.
I was talking Naina's Fali. You had them meeting, but there was absolutely, was that deliberate? The fact that they got no closure with that meeting?
Sheila, your voice is breaking up, and I just couldn't hear which question, what did you ask?
Okay, let me try again. I'm talking no closure. Was that deliberate on the writer's part, Shefali?
No closure in
Giving them no.
Nana's story. In Nana's story, yeah. In the
Yeah.
end, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so life doesn't end till it ends. So, see, we're looking for if anyone's looking for a conventional closure, there is none. But for a woman of these times, I think there was a perfect closure. It gave me a lot of satisfaction to
Okay.
see her happily, not settled in the conventional sense, but a good career, good, family, happy
Yeah.
life, everything. She had everything. So I wouldn't say no closure, but we'll not give out the ending here, Sheila. Yes.
Okay. What about the character of Tara? There's a lot of detail. Did you have to do a lot of research on autism?
Okay, so Tara, although she has this autism um, spectrum disorder, she, I have dealt it from the point of them being siblings. You know, I've just described her behavior, and in a way, you could say that I learned about autism or about how Tara behaves along with Nana, just as Nana in the beginning, you know, she finds Tara odd and she doesn't want to play with her as a child. She has no clue what has happened to Tara. So also she holds her responsible for everything that's going wrong in their family. But when she goes to college, she meets Jay, who is blind, and she, you know, slowly she comes back to Tara, helps her. She becomes more compassionate, and they discover that she has a ear for music, and they help her with that. And finally, we see that Tara is working. So you know, so in the in childhood, she still has those you know, kind of uh, a rift with her, or you know, not liking to have Tara around her. And there was an incident where her friend comes and she tells her grandmother to not let Tara out, but Tara comes, and you know, she's very unhappy. So do you want me to read that bit, Sheila? Okay, I read that bit from you know. So Tara is only described in one paragraph. Her what she's, how she is. Tara did not look up. She never did. Her whole world of talking, listening, thinking, and loving was inside her. Those that mattered to her could listen to her unspoken word, respond to her silent inquiry. She kept to her neatly ordered life. Like Nana ran, just focusing on one foot in front of the other, one at a time. Tara too looked at each task at hand as though through a fire lens. Her days were neatly slotted into tasks. She would move from one to the other only when the last one had been put into place like pieces of Legos. Everything in her world was in order, in the particular order that she had everything set in her head. And then is this incident when the friend comes, Nana's friend comes to visit. Nana was playing house with Anjali. They had tied the four corners of an old bed sheet to a pillar, two chairs, and a tree in the porch, and in the cozy hideout under it, they had set up their kitchen sets and dolls. When Nani sent out a plate with biscuits and two glasses of roux afza, the two girls came out to sit on the steps. It was a hot day. The plate with the orange cream biscuits sat on the steps beside them as they looked at the garden through the rose-colored water, holding the glasses to their eyes. Tara, who had been inside and who Nani had promised she would keep an eye on and not let out until Anjali left, suddenly appeared on the other side of the row of glasses. Tara walked straight to the plate of biscuits, and after first arranging the biscuits into two straight rows, she picked one, opened to lick its cream, and then stuck it back together and placed it neatly back in its place on the plate. She began doing this to all the biscuits. Anjali looked up at Naina. Nana quickly picked two biscuits Tara had not licked and handed them to Anjali. Very calmly but persuasively, Tara, without looking up at either of them, wrenched the biscuits from Anjali's hand and placed them back on the plate. Anjali tried to pick one again, but Tara pushed her hand away. Anjali got up in a huff and started gathering her dolls and her beautiful blue tea set. I'll get you biscuits from inside, okay? Nana pleaded with her, but Anjali left without a reply. At the gate, she turned around and called out, Nana, I will never come to play with you. Your sister is mental. Yeah.
Okay, so now tell us about the way you ended the book, Shefali. I was much struck by the end because the way you had head, but she was standing tall, like the way she spoke, and she was ready to take on anything that would come her way. So, and so what was the message you were trying to tell?
Oh, no message, Sheila. No message. It's clear message should be that we have to live with positivity and courage and never give up. I think that is what will come out clearly, and I hope it does. Um, yeah.
No, so was it deliberate not to have her in a relationship at the end of the film, at the end of the book?
Yeah. I think I answered that, but we're having this lag in the audio. So what I was saying is not in the conventional sense. No, a 27-year-old is not married off. Doesn't that is giving out too much, but still. So, but yeah, she stands tall, determined, ready to take on, and she's helping other girls like her, and she's volunteering at the center. The help who stood by them throughout is married, and that family is also living with them. Tara is working in a library, so I think she has everything going for her. Yeah. Could we talk
Yes.
about her relationship with her father? Because
So,
that
tell us about. Yes, yes.
yeah, okay, yeah. So yes, so her Tara and Papa have a very complex relationship. He's her hero when I mean, as a small child, and she's looking forward to him coming and picking her up when she's asleep. And then suddenly he goes away. He leaves. And she doesn't understand this, but over time she begins to feel that um, he has gone to live a normal life with a normal family, leaving them all to their, problems. So she grows up with this and she's very angry with him, especially when Amma dies. She thinks that he is responsible for Amma dying the way she did. So, so when she goes later to meet him, she's not ready to forgive him. And then again, the conflict starts. Did she do right in not forgiving him, in not talking with him? And so I think that was. one part of the story that was also very overwhelming for me at times. Um, a girl's relationship with her father is always very special. So I will read a bit about the conflict the child felt, the little Nana felt. So the forever changes in their lives were triggered off that evening. Papa stopped coming to the dinner parties. Nana would be left with Nani for days. Whenever he came, they squabbled, he and Nana Nani. Those times he referred to Amma as your daughter instead of Nayantara. When he thought she was sleeping, he would kiss Nana. She would be awake, but would not dare to move, too scared to upset anyone and conflicted about which side she was supposed to be on. Nana held Tara responsible for all this. Ever since Tara had come into their lives, Amma had started behaving strangely. So now, this is how she feels then. And then later, um, there is a part where she is telling Uday about him when she has come back after visiting him and has not spoken to him. That is how she felt that way. Now she's thinking back and saying, he called me Nadia. It means hope in Russian. I never understood why. Now I think perhaps I was his only hope, and I turned away. She grew pensive again. One day there was a party in this house. There in the lawn the big table had been laid out, covered in a white tablecloth. The summer air was warm and pleasant. It was so beautiful, the mild fragrance of summer blooms mixed with the whiff of people's perfumes. Everyone dressed so elegantly, especially the ladies in beautiful pastel chiffons and gossamer cottons, and the sound of laughter and friendly banter. The servants were walking with trays of iced lemonade. I was standing near the rose bed in my peach organdy frock, so stiff that if I got up from sitting, it remained sitting. Nana smiled at the thought. Then Nani noticed me and called me over. When everyone's attention was on me, she urged me to sing. I was very shy. I looked around and saw Papa standing with a group of men. He was not listening to them. His attention was on me and what was being said to me. I felt all the more shy, but he looked happy. He winked at me as if offering me his support, asking me to sing. Edelweiss was his favorite. I started. Another auntie joined in. When I finished and looked around, he was clapping loudest of all. It meant so much to me. He seemed proud of me. I can never understand how he did what he did. He used to shout and yell at Amma. Amma never shouted back. Although she did all those frightful things, I still remember how fearful she was when he held her against the wall one day. He was choking her with his elbow pressed against against her pressed to her throat. Her eyes were popping out with fear. I was so scared, howling and pleading. Papa, let Amma go. Papa, let Amma go. Please, Papa. Nana lapsed into a silence. After a few minutes, she asked him, do you think I can be forgiven for what I did to him? I will never be able to forgive myself. So, Sheila, there was no closure as far as their relationship was concerned, the father daughter. And I think she regrets that.
Yes, passage in the book. So should we throw the session open to questions, Shefali?
Okay.
So are there any questions from listeners?
Not yet. Um,
Well, not yet. So tell me something personal now. Let's move a little away from the book. Tell us about your writing process. Are you a
oh,
disciplined writer who, spends a certain set amount of time every day?
no, Sheila, not. I'm a very disciplined person, but not a disciplined writer. Very random. I write when I feel like it. It comes, but I do on the weekends. I have a day job, so on the weekends I do sit down and read what I've written. If I mean, it just helps the process a little. Nothing more. Yeah, you polish your writing a bit, but otherwise I just wait for things to come to me to become so compulsive that you have to leave everything and sit down to
Okay.
write. Yeah. Um,
Shefali, what are you reading right now?
okay. Good question because I'm reading something related to this. I'm reading a book called Maine Mandu Nahi Dekha. The English translation of which is due out next month. So I wanted to read the original before the English translation comes. It is being done by Jerry Pinto, and uh, this is this is the writer is Swadesh Deepak, who has written about the 7 years of mental illness, his 7 years of mental illness, when he used to have delusions, and each line is sheer poetry. It's very beautiful, and it's really nice that it's being translated into English so that more people can read it. And the very why he fascinates me is how objectively he has written about his condition, about the people around him, and you'll be surprised that after writing this book, one day he just got up and left, and he never came back home. He's just out there somewhere. So I'm reading that and enjoying it thoroughly. I mean, it's not a thing to be enjoyed, but beautiful writing it is. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
Which
so I
leads me to my next question. Who are writers who inspire you?
oh so many how if I narrow your question down to those who in this genre, then I would say anyone who writes about how the mind functions, and that is almost everyone. But A Beautiful Mind by Sylvia Nasser, eh, and in a lot of ways, Nabokov, Sweet Memory, Pamuk, Istanbul. I mean, they're all writing about what goes on in our heads, and it's really so fascinating to read.
Okay.
The Mark Haddon's curious incident of a dog at night time. It's a beautifully
Yeah.
written, first person account, and yeah,
Yes. So I see a pattern here. I think almost all these writers are writers who delve into how the mind works. When you really, very reflective writers,
right,
all of them
right,
that you've named,
right,
isn't
right,
it?
right, right. Yes, yes. Yeah, I think that's where my pull is. Yeah. Okay. I think
Yes.
we've come to the end of the
And
session. There are more.
yeah.
Can't hear you, Sheila.
Do I have time to ask what's next on the anvil, Shefali?
Okay, why not? Yes, something is cooking. Or slow cooking, but it's again a story of three women belonging to different strata of the society, and being in the same situation, but how different sections of the society treat them differently. So I'm very happy. I mean, enjoying it. Let's see what becomes of it. There is a one person is a ghost. So if if you can call that
How
one
interesting.
character. Yeah. So
All the best for that, Shefali.
thank you, Sheila, for this session. Though the audio was a little problematic, but I think we did good with whatever little we could hear of each other. Thank you, Kalinga Literary Festival team, for giving me this opportunity to present my book. Thank you.